Welcome to Men Answering the Heroic Call. I'm Tom Hornacek with Dean Patterson. In this podcast, Dean and I want to help equip you for this battle of life that we wake up to each day. The word heroic refers to actions or qualities that demonstrate great courage, bravery, and self-sacrificing love. These actions rise up during difficult situations in our lives, requiring a heroic response. No one goes to battle alone. As men of Christ, we answer the call together.
Each episode, Tom and I will share truths about the Catholic faith, as well as stories that help us grow as the men we're created to be. And each episode, we'll talk about some of the challenges and pitfalls in life that help us to grow in faith, hope, and wisdom as we all answer the heroic call. And Tom, we talked last episode, and we've held Jim O'Day over for a second one here, hearing an amazing story of how God intervened in his life through his boss and through other events in his life. An amazing episode, guys. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch that one. But we're going to continue on one of the biggest challenges in this life, as it turns out, I think, the whole notion of pornography and the challenges that men have as we are, given images every day just walking by a magazine rack, I think. And so we're going to go with that today again. We think it's a powerful opportunity to hear just how is this impacting men? How are men made in such a way that they gravitate to this? How can we fight it? And what are some of the answers? So what do you think, Tom?
Well, I think it's a great idea. First of all, men, if you didn't hear our previous podcast with Jim O'Day sharing his story, you need to go back and listen to it. I guarantee it will change how you think. So Jim O'Day, the Executive Director of Integrity Restored, thanks for joining us again. Now, what is Integrity Restored and what is your purpose and mission?
So we're a Catholic ministry, Tom, that exists to educate, train, and provide resources for the scourge of pornography addiction. Pornography addiction is one of the fastest growing addictions in the world, not just the United States. And the average age of exposure here in the US is now between 8 and 10 years old. And so we're raising up generations of people. Used to be able to say guys, can't do that anymore. Women are just as at risk of pornography addicts. And there's a lot of scientific reasons why it's addictive. So Integrity Restored has programs to train priests, our 3 Pillars to Purity online priest training program. We have programs for spouses who are suffering from betrayal trauma due to their husband's pornography usage. We have programs for parents. We have a podcast twice a month. We have free. If everybody goes to integrityrestored.com, you can download 6 free ebooks to start to educate yourself on this problem. Because here's what I tell everybody when I go out and speak. If you yourself are not struggling today, you absolutely know and love someone who is. It is that prevalent. I just read a study from the Barna group not too long ago. This is 87% of Christian men in church on a Sunday have viewed pornography in the last week. 87. And these are our brothers, our guys who get it, who want to live the faith. So it's that pervasive.
Well, what is the percent? I was reading it. I believe between the age of 8 and 16 years old, that 90% of the kids at that age have seen porn. That just blew my mind.
Absolutely correct. There's a study just came. Here's something sadder if you're the parent of a daughter. There's a study that came out of the UK that questioned 12 to 14-year-old girls. So on average, 10 times a night, they are asked for nude pictures, 12 to 14-year-old girls. And what ends up happening is these poor young girls eventually give in because that's where they see their value. Their value is only in their body parts. And how sad is that? I spoke to a young lady not long ago, and she was very promiscuous because she thought that that's how she would get a guy to love her. And she said, I spent the last 5 years this is the saddest quote, being a really pathetic porn star because I would watch what they did on the screen and I would try and replicate it for these men in my life, hoping that one of them would love me. My heart broke, guys. And any man who hears that, we should be infuriated that that happened to this young woman. Our job as men, our DNA as men, has to be protector and provider. It's who God made us to be. And yet we're allowing this pornified culture to just rip our kids away from what God really intends.
Jim, do you
Why?
have any
Yeah,
statistic
go.
on maybe women versus men? And do men gravitate much more, a little more to pornography? How are we made as men, and what should we be aware of?
So that's a great question. And you know, for a long time, you would hear comments like pornography is a man's problem, right? And actually this very sad thing is women who struggle with pornography really think they're damaged and broken because that's a guy's problem. But the way our brain works, sexual imagery is exciting and the brain looks for excitement. And so men can be a little more visual creatures, but women are just as visual as well. The woman porn industry knows they don't have to spend marketing dollars to get the three of us, right? Guys are easy to get. So they spend all their time marketing to women to increase that percentage of women who are using these platforms because for them, it's all about traffic. The more traffic, the more money they make. Here's a scary statistic. Porn is bigger than the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League combined in annual revenue. Who would have thought that? These are huge money-making operations. Porn dwarfs them. But here's the scary part. They dwarf them with only 10% of paid content.
Mm.
90% of what they give away is free. And they use that to draw you in, to suck you in, because eventually it's not enough. And you will start paying for content. Now we have things like OnlyFans,
Oh,
where young girls are going on there and doing little shows for men to pay them. Talk about devaluing your beauty as a woman. How sad. We need to help these people.
now, Jim, I've heard from some of the American exorcists that most of these films now are cursed.
Mm,
What
yep.
is your experience in that?
I have heard that as well. And it does not surprise me. I had a great spiritual director some time ago, and he said, look, the devil doesn't want to work hard. And here's the sad part. He doesn't have to. Sin is not 80 from holiness. Sin starts with 5% off track. And over time, that 5% brings you further and further away. So the devil knows if he can tap into this very primitive area of our brain, right, that is not logical, it just responds to stimuli, fight, flee, freeze. Well, I add a fourth F, fornicate, because that part of our brain, that reptile brain, once that gets activated, everything else gets turned off. God created us that way, right? And it's beautiful. It's to keep us safe. It's to procreate. It makes a lot of sense. But when you shut off the thinking part of your brain, then it's real easy to go down bad paths. So we have to be very conscientious about stopping those temptations right when we feel them. Because if the deepest part of your brain gets activated, the frontal lobe turns off. And now you're in trouble.
So I've also heard that if we see this huge rise in pedophiles, that what porn does, it's never enough. That's why it destroys marriages, that it's never enough. I got to do the next thing, then I got to do it with somebody else, and then I'm going to go after children. So would you say that porn is probably the largest contributor to this?
100%. Absolutely. But I think it's important that we talk about the science first. Why is that happening? So at Integrity Restored, we have what we call the three pillars. And we really look at this problem based upon one of those three pillars. The first pillar is the science. So what's going on in the brain neurochemically? What's going on in the body physiologically? Why is this so addictive? The second pillar is the spiritual pillar. What is happening to us spiritually when we're stuck in this rut? And what can we do spiritually to heal? And then the third pillar is relationships. What does this addiction or habit or usage do to our relationships? So I want to answer that question first from the scientific pillar, Tom. What happens with our brains is we produce dopamine when we see those images. Dopamine is a chemical that makes us feel good. So many people use pornography as a self-soothing tool because of some wound in their life, or they've had a bad day and they know this is going to make them feel better. They want that hit of dopamine. They don't know what it is, but they want it. And so we watch porn and we get that hit of dopamine. But what happens when we're watching pornography is dopamine is released in an unnatural level. It's too much dopamine. When I hang out with you, Tom, or you, Dean, and we meet and we shake each other's hand and we give each other a brother hug, that gives us dopamine, a little bit of dopamine. When we exercise and we do something good for our bodies, that gives us dopamine, a normal amount of dopamine. When we watch porn, we get flooded with dopamine. And so the brain says, whoa, too much dopamine. I got to turn off some of these receptors. So it actually shuts off the dopamine receptors. And therefore, in order to get that same feeling, you have to watch more porn, so more time, or increasingly aggressive types of porn to get that same dopamine rush. See, the brain is always looking for something novel, something new. And God made it that way so we could be curious and we could explore and we could learn and we could grow. But it also is a dangerous thing if you're dealing with pornography because enough is never enough. You're going to need something new.
It's
To
amazing.
answer that question, still staying on that topic of pedophilia, child sexual abuse material, the new phrase, because a lot of men, women as well now, unfortunately, who are viewing this material, they would not be classified as clinical pedophiles. They don't want to touch children or do anything with children. They're just looking at this child sexual abuse material in order to get that rush. So it really is creating a problem for law enforcement. It's creating a problem for therapists and clinicians. What do we do to help these people? And then finally, the spiritual pillar, guys. I can't think of anything more insidious. You know, I've been told by bishops and priests around the country, but around the world now, that the problem of pornography is the most confessed sin on a Saturday in the confessional. And it also becomes the biggest impediment to evangelization, to vocations, to marriages, because people are so tied up pornography. So the devil, it's his playground right now. He's having a field day, keeping everybody from that primary relationship we should be focused on, which is our relationship with God. In Japan, a very secular country, the Japanese government is worried. They're scared sick because marriage rates are down and birth rates are way down. People are not having kids. And there's a phrase in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, so I'm not going to even try and say it, but it literally means it's a bother. So these young people over there, particularly the men, go to work all day. They're very, very hardworking. They work all day. They go home. They pour themselves a drink. They watch some porn. They masturbate. They eat dinner, and then they play their video games all night because that is more convenient. They are totally isolating, inoculating themselves against relationships, against hurt, against feeling because it's easier. How sad is that? And many of those men will end up running up against that hard wall of, I can't find anything to turn me on anymore. I'm clicking and I'm scrolling and I need something new. I've seen a very interesting dads, grandfathers, men just like us, heterosexual men who have been heterosexual their whole life now can only get turned on by gay porn because it's something new. And that is one of the shocking things that happens. And one of the times in a user's life where then they'll send that email or pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, I'm real scared. Something weird's going on. I'm not gay, but that's arousing me. We have to protect our brains, Jim.
Well, science, Tom and Jim, I mean, just the science explains the addictive nature of this and escalate. And and then you look at the whole notion that there's a loneliness and a crisis of isolation in men where they work from home or they have their man caves, their garages, just a lot of discretionary time. Something I heard quoted Cardinal Burke saying men just don't take sin seriously. And how much of that, Jim, do you believe we need to return to spiritually, I suppose, in that pillar that you spoke of spiritually? Return to the notion that Satan's got us in a stranglehold right now and we need to repent from that. But do men take sin seriously in your view? Is this a sin? And where does the church stand on that?
No, men don't. We have, man, this is probably going to get me in trouble, guys. Oh boy.
Oh,
You're killing me.
pause recording.
So I think we've effeminized Jesus in a lot of ways, and that's not who he was. I mean, if you want to talk about a true warrior, Jesus, the ultimate picture, he who would lay down his life for another, for all of us. And Jesus wasn't this soft, meek. Guys, he was in the desert for 40 days fighting the devil, but he didn't try and fight the devil on the devil's terms. We can't use the things of this world to fight the devil. We have to use the things of the Father. And so I think men don't get sin anymore because we've got a warped or a watered down version of what the faith calls us to be as men. You know, there was a study I talked in the earlier episode, or maybe it was this one, about the Barna group study. They also asked the question in their previous study about 8 years ago. Question was very simple. What is a bigger sin? Not recycling or watching porn? Almost 90% of the respondents said not recycling was a bigger sin. We have allowed the world, society, culture to infiltrate our faith, our church. What are the challenges? And guys, if you can do anything for integrity restored, if you're watching this episode, every day get on your knees and pray that our bishops and our priests will start addressing this problem. They'll stop being afraid of it. I get it. It's a scary topic. People are going to complain. They're going to be uncomfortable. But I know in my own life, when God put me in those uncomfortable places, that's when I grew. And I think right now as a church and as men in the church, that's what we're being called to do. Be uncomfortable and let's grow. Let's protect our families. Let's protect our marriages. Let's protect our brothers, because this challenge is hitting everybody.
So, Jim, one other thing that I heard a testimony about a young man who started to leave the gay lifestyle only because at a young age he saw gay porn.
Mhm.
He said that's the only thing that led him into it. He's
Yep.
free now and he's repented. It's people just don't realize. And I guess the thing that surprises me the most, Jim, is why aren't our bishops and priests and our representatives of our government talking about this? It's a no brainer when you understand everything you've just told us. Why we don't have protection so that kids can't enter into this stuff online.
Yep. Yep.
Why?
It's interesting. There's 13, I think. Don't quote me on this. I think there's about 13 states right now that have controls in place, age verification controls in place, but that's only a handful of states, right? Why isn't it every state? The answer is money. Okay.
Mm,
This is a huge industry with a strong lobby. There's a lot of misunderstanding, in my opinion, about freedom of speech around this topic, because that's what they always go back and fight with, is this freedom of speech concept. But here's the thing: you got to be 21 to buy a beer, and you have to show your ID. You got to be 21 to buy cigarettes, and you got to show your ID. You got to be 18 to vote. I mean, we have age verification and age restrictions in place on plenty of other things. Why don't we do it here? And the porn industry's response is very interesting. When a state puts this system in place, the porn industry shuts down their servers to that state because they don't want to deal with it. They know that the vast majority of their users, especially during certain hours, 3 to 5 p.m., for example, are underage kids. And they just want that traffic. They don't care. They know the younger they get these kids, the more likely they're a paid customer in the future, driving their revenue through the roof. So, yeah, we have to talk to our politicians, and we have to share with our priests and our bishops resources like Integrity Restored, resources like Covenant Eyes. If you're interested in filtration software for yourself and accountability software for yourself and your family, go to covenanteyes.com, put in the promotion code Integrity30. You get a free 30 days to try it out. That can really be a great first step in protecting yourself.